I can only speak to a lived experience. That's how I look at it. It's my life. It's the way I saw it, the way I felt it, the way it came at me. I don't know what this guy said, and I don't really care. But I will say this: watching this game last night, something happened in this game that you don't see very often.
Guy quitting?
A guy quitting right in the middle of the game, and that's Devondre Campbell of the 49ers, who decided he did not want to go win the game. Now, the last 3 weeks, his playing time, had diminished because he wasn't playing well. And plus, they got Nick Bosa back last night, so there's going to be more of a rotation. And he just basically walked right off the field. It's kind of like what Antonio Brown did against the Jets.
Yeah,
although he didn't take his shirt off.
I was going to say a little less dramatic, but yes, something that we didn't think we'd really see again. And there was one other guy. Was it Vontae Davis, who unfortunately I think passed away very young?
No, not Vontae Davis. I think it was San Francisco tight end from Maryland.
No.
When Coach Singletary threw him off the field, didn't he throw him off the field?
I'm talking about Vontae Davis, where he retired at halftime of a game.
Oh, that's right. That did happen, yes.
Yeah, and then he ended up doing like FanDuel commercials or something after that, and I'm pretty sure he died recently, but tragically. But anyway, so you don't see it a lot, is the point.
No, you don't. What's really, eye-opening is the comments from his teammates, George Kittle, Charvarius Ward. All of these guys, man, just lighten into him.
Well, Kittle said, I hope I'm never around someone who does that again. Yeah.
Right. So, obviously, Shanahan and John Lynch, their GM out there, are going to release him, it sounds like. And it probably can't happen fast enough. And it looks to me like right now, the 49ers, man, their season's done. They are fourth in their division. They're not eliminated. But last night was a game that they had to have. And here's the thing I appreciate about the Rams. And anybody who's ever played football, anybody who's ever coached football, anybody who knows about, and I'm sure Joe Sipp felt this way, I know Sal Ciampi felt this way, that you determine the toughness of your team by whether or not you can run the football. That's basically what it's about. Can you run? That's why Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are so important in Kansas City. You know what? We could throw the ball 50 times because we have Patrick Mahomes. But you know what? In order to win in the NFL, especially in inclement weather, cold weather, you have to be able to run the ball. And I think that's also like the Detroit Lions. The reason I'm talking about them and their indoors is that Dan Campbell said, we're going to build this offensive line. We're going to get a couple of running backs, and we're going to run it down your throat. And then Ben Johnson can do all the play-action passing he wants. And then Jared Goff can complete passes to wide-open wide receivers. But the Rams are tough. They're tough because that Kyron Williams. It's amazing. They're going to ruin him. His career is going to be very short.
Well, because, they're just handing him the ball a million times, and he's basically he's like a pinball.
He is carrying the team. I know they scored 44 points last weekend. A lot of it is, with the wide receivers and Matthew Stafford and everything else. But even Sean McVay said after the game last night, we want to run the football. And that is really the true key of a very physical football team, which obviously the Rams with a healthy offensive line now have turned into. And, they're making a beeline for that number 7 spot. I don't think they could catch Seattle, I guess, in the West. But most likely they got their eyes on the Washington Commanders.
Yes.
Or the Green Bay Packers. And that would be the 6th or 7th spot in the NFC playoffs.
And the Commanders have a game this week. They're on the road against the Saints, coming off a bye, the Commanders are, and the Saints obviously don't have Derek Carr. So that's probably it should be a win for the Commanders, but you never know in this wacky NFL, right?
True, yeah.
And you've got another one of these examples of a Super Bowl loser hangover. And there have been many examples of that. The team that makes it to the Super Bowl and loses comes back the next season and underachieves more often than not. And it's a shame for the 49ers because they've had this window where they've had so much talent on both sides of the ball. They've done things right with Mike Shanahan and John Lynch for many years, and they haven't won. Now, I'm not crying a tear for 49ers fans. They essentially had a dynasty. They've seen a lot of winning throughout the years. Maybe the younger 49er fan hasn't, but this particular team and regime and window that they had, especially when Brock Purdy was the quarterback prior to paying him, and that's going to be a fascinating offseason discussion about him and his contract, and he didn't do anything last night in the rain. But, they are – the window's closing a little bit. Christian McCaffrey, not healthy, another year older. I mean, Deebo Samuel is not the same player. It's an interesting situation there in San Francisco. Their shot really was to not blow that Super Bowl last year and get that title because right now they're on the way down.
I mean, we looked back at their schedule and we saw where they were playing Tampa, they beat them. And they had Seattle, Green Bay, and Buffalo all in a row. They lost all three of those games, beat the Chicago Bears, and then lost last night. Now, they could be spoilers here because they do have at Miami next week, and then they have Detroit at home, and then they have to go to Arizona, and that's a TBD. There could be a place where they ruin somebody's season. That's basically what it comes down to now with only 3 games left for the 49ers.
Yeah, and when you're going back at the schedules, it reminded me, too, that we have not seen a New York football team win since October 31st. That was when the Jets beat the Texans. Like, think about that. So all of November and now a half a month here in December, we have not seen one of these two teams win.
Well, I mean, you're saying one of the two teams, right? I mean,
we haven't seen either one of them.
I know, but the other team hasn't won since when? It was the Giants before when? When was the last Giant win? Because they haven't won at home.
I don't even remember.
I mean, again, I go back to this discussion we had last week. Man, if they go 2-15 and they go 0-9 at home in the 100th season of the New York Giants,
they won. They beat the Seahawks on October 6th,
which is unbelievable in Seattle.
Yeah,
they beat the Seahawks in Week 5.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Week 5, 29-20. And before that, they beat the Browns at the Browns.
Yeah, so it's, what is it now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 losses in a row for them. And for the Jets, it's how many losses in a row?
Is it 6?
It's probably.
Or 7?
That is now. All right, so we go back to Texas, so the Cardinals.
But at least the Jets
2,
have some
3.
semblance of an offense.
Oh, it's only 4 because the Jets had the bye in there. So it's only 4. So we had 8, so 12 straight losses between these two teams that we have witnessed here. And I mean, obviously the Giants don't have a shot to win this week. They are a 16.5-point underdog at home, which means that if this game were in Baltimore, like the promo thought it was that WFAN ran.
Oh, we ran a promo with the game being in Baltimore. They might as well just move the game to Baltimore, and they'd probably make a little bit more money.
Yeah, but it would have been like a 20-point spread or 19.5-point spread if it were in Baltimore.
Hey, Al, do a deep dive for me. Check secondary market tickets for this particular game. So if you're a Ravens fan and you want to see a really good football team, you could probably get in there relatively cheap, I think.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think, Al?
Get in the door price there is probably Sacagawea. You could probably get in there with a Sacagawea. That's what I think. That's all you got to do is show up with a coin, and you'll be able to get into that game. But yeah,
if you're a Ravens fan, and your team is still a very good team, still very much in the mix, and you can't afford to go see a game down there in Baltimore, you could drive right up I-95 for probably less money and get into the game for less money when it's all over said and done with.
Yeah. And then maybe stop by the American Dream and see that Nickelodeon thing they got going on there right now.
Nickelodeon?
Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, into the first break of the warm-up show, it said, the Giants travel to Charm City to take on the Baltimore Ravens.
No, they don't.
It's like, wait a second. Were we giving away tickets for this game all week?
You get in the lowest price, $33.
That's more than I thought.
Game day will be way less than that. People who know how to manipulate this and work those angles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And just like, you know what? I'll take $14 for 2 tickets. Why not? Just to unload these things. But now that Bill Belichick went to North Carolina, I'm sure that Brian Daboll and Joe Shane feel a little bit safer, but they're not going to win. I actually think, the Jets have a legitimate shot at winning. They're a road favorite. They look much better on offense. You got Mac Jones and the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a shot at breaking this streak here. This New York football streak. We might come in talking about a Jets win on Monday.
I hope so. Well, part of me doesn't want them to win because I want a higher draft pick. But
right, exactly.
I got to be practical about the way the players and coaches go about their business. Unfortunately, Jeff Ulbrich was handed a kind of like a bag of bricks. And go fix it, go put it together, and unfortunately it didn't work out for him. But he'll have a job next year. He'll be a defense coordinator with one of these new staffs.
Yes.
He will be.
Or a linebacker coach or something.
No,
I mean,
he'll be a coordinator, most likely. I'm telling you.
yeah, you know what I mean? If I'm looking at Jeff Ulbrich, I'm like, wow, that defense fell apart once Rob Saleh left. That's what I say. And you know, you could be like, oh, it was spread too thin. Well, I mean, that defense stunk when Saleh left. It's been terrible. It's been the reason they've been losing games.
Right.
So I don't know if he's coming into an offseason.
You say they're losing
hot
games.
commodity.
I know the defense hasn't been great, but, you know, the offense has also had the ball at the end of the game and hasn't been able to score to win the game.
True. Yeah.
It's a little bit of both. It's everybody. It's
Multiple
everything,
times.
especially when you do play and you do score over 24 points or whatever and you still lose the game. I mean, everybody has a hand in that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of instances, though, like, the Dolphins game, definitely the defense's fault. The Colts game, definitely the defense's fault.
Right.
There's a couple games out there.
So, interesting, you know, yesterday you sent me a
YouTube video.
Yeah, YouTube video, text message, YouTube video of John Gruden playing golf.
With the guys that we played golf
Yes.
with, foreplay, the Barstool guys. So it was Trent Ryan, Frankie Borelli, who is a Long Island guy and a big Islander fan, and friends of the program, and also Jersey Jerry, who's one of the Barstool guys, and it was Gruden, and they were down at his home course, Avila, down in Tampa, where there's a lot of guys, famous people that live down there. He lives on the golf course. Aaron Judge has a house down there. Jorge Posada has a house on the golf course. He's pointing out all the houses. And this guy is the greatest. I watched this. It was like an hour and a half with a smile on my face, laughing my ass off at everything. And the way that he talks about everything in that Gruden voice is just the best. Like, you know, Frankie hits this drive like 300 right down the middle, and he's not on Frankie's team, and he goes, "You're starting to piss me off, man. You're really starting to piss me off." And then they're watching the other team putt, and he goes, "You know, some people feel pressure, other people apply pressure. We're applying that pressure, man. That's what we're doing." And he's an
incredible
perfect
personality.
guy.
He's an incredible personality, man.
And the way he was talking about the Lions offense. So right before he's about to tee off, he's like, "Man, those two backs, man. I love myself some two backs, man. You know, we had it in Tampa. You know, we had it there. I had whatever he said in the Raiders back in his first stint. He's like, we had those guys, man. It's like those two backs keep them fresh. I love what they're doing down there in Detroit, man. You know, that face and it's just like his football running through his veins, and you know, and just the presence that he has and the way that these guys are looking up to him. And I understand that they're not NFL players, but you know, they're celebrities in their own right.
Plus, John Gruden is like, you know, he's got a reputation and everything, whether it be bad or good. I mean, it's definitely impactful. I mean, that's the way he was as a broadcaster.
Yeah.
Like I told you that, you know, and I think your assessment is right on. That guy walks into a building, he takes it over.
Yeah, and the Jets aren't going to do that. They're not. And if Woody Johnson, apparently, who listens to things and pays attention to things, you know, if this somehow gets to him, seriously, Woody, consider this, please. Like, seriously consider this. Don't bring in another guy who knows nothing about the Jets, nothing about New Jersey, is basically fresh meat that's going to come here and get pounded into a burger patty. Don't do it.
You got to remember, John Gruden was in Philadelphia as a coordinator.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so he knows tough cities and tough places to coach.
Oh, of course.
I mean, not that Tampa Bay and Oakland, when he was with Oakland, were all that difficult to coach. I mean, they have passionate fan bases, but he won in both places.
He told that story when he first got to Barstool, and he was watching one of the games. He's like, "You guys ever hear about WIP radio, man?" He's like, "I was driving, and one time they're like, Gruden sucks, doesn't know what he's doing, you know, and I'm just laughing." You know, so he knows what's going on.
100% he knows what's going on.
He told this story. So they're on the tee box, and he goes, "You know, you guys know Ray Perkins, Coach Ray Perkins?" And they're like, "Yeah, I kind of remember." He's like, "That's Ray Perkins' house right there." And Ray Perkins, when he took over whatever team, you know, first thing he did was fire my dad. And then when I got to the Raiders, Ray Perkins was there, man. First thing I did, brought him into the office, fired him, called my dad and said, "I just fired Ray Perkins for you, man." It was just just like,
That's right. Take no prisoners, man. That's the guy you want.
It was great. So then,
yes.
So then Trent and him hit these shots both on a par 3, like to within 10 feet, and then Trent goes, "I wish Ray Perkins lived on every hole." It's so good. I highly recommend it. And anybody who's got a sour taste with John Gruden,
Just watch it.
watch that, and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. It's
I
so good.
For some reason, somebody wanted to set him up. It's the only thing I could think of.
Well, Rich Gannon implied that when he was on with us. He was like, it was to take some heat off of Dan Snyder at the time, who was trying to remain the owner down in Washington, and Gruden was the bigger story at that point.
I'll tell you, man, he's intense. I covered a lot of his games when he was down in Oakland, and of course Tampa. But he's about as intense as they come. I mean, and he is a personality. He is a bigger than life personality, even though he's not big in stature. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it is he's going to make your team tough. That's for sure.
And that voice when he's like, with the golf lingo that we all say, and like he'll hit a shot and catch a piece, man, catch a piece. It's like, what you want to do, man? If you can, I don't know if you want to do. You just want to draw it over that bunker, just like that, man. Put it in the middle of the fairway. Probably have a wedge in. Just like I loved it. But the Jets are not going to do that. Of course, they're not going to do that. They're just going to hire some young guy because all these owners are afraid of guys like Bill Belichick and John Gruden, and they don't want to hand the keys over to an alpha male, and they want to control somebody like Woody Johnson wants to control somebody, and that's what's going to happen. They're going to bring in one of those general managers. I got a feeling it's going to be this dude. The second I saw his name, I was like, that's going to be the Jets general manager, is the Chiefs assistant GM, Mike Borgonzi.
Okay.
Because I could just hear guys like Beningo complaining, and freaking Borgonzi, ever since Borgonzi came in here, we don't have an offensive line. So that guy, they'll bring in this Mike Borgonzi, and then Borgonzi will bring in a guy that he can control, and then Woody will be back there doing the marionette stuff, and then they'll suck for another decade. It's going to be so frustrating. Bring in Gruden, turn this thing on its ass, and let's go. Enough.
No, interesting enough, I think, their GM now is Brett Veach.
In Kansas City?
In Kansas City. And you remember the whole thing around Mahomes when they were getting ready to draft Mahomes?
Yeah.
They had a GM there. And who ended up going to Cleveland?
John Dorsey.
John Dorsey, that's right. And I think John Dorsey got loose with his lips about them drafting Patrick Mahomes. And I don't know if this is totally accurate, but I think that Andy Reid didn't like that because, Andy is like, we're getting this kid, and I want this kid.
Yeah.
And don't tell people that this is who we're drafting. I think it might have gotten out somewhere. And at the end of the draft was over, they shipped Dorsey out. He went to Cleveland, and I believe Brett Veach is the one who took over. And I think he was working under Dorsey.
Yeah, Dorsey's name has been attached to the Jets in their GM search now, actually, if you look at some of the lists that are out there.
Well, I'm sure he's, he's obviously got experience and has been at the highest levels of the NFL. And I don't know, it's just a different place, and I think Aaron Rodgers has felt it. I know that I, under a different regime, felt it, but there's something that needs to be done, and that's why Rex Ryan was so perfect, and Bill Parcells, for that matter, were so perfect for the Jets.
Yep.
Because of their personalities, their alpha male personalities, the way that they would walk in a room, the way they would command respect, and it showed itself on the field, the way that the players played.
Absolutely. So we'll see. It's going to be an offseason filled with a lot of rumors. I do believe Daboll and Shane are going to stay, but those guys and the Giants are going to be at the top of the draft. So it'll be an exciting offseason, but unfortunately.
They lose 44-10 this week at home again. Just, I would just sit on that comment right there. I'm just waiting to see how this whole thing ends up. I mean, I look, as much as I like those guys, and I think they were.
Who the hell are they going to bring in instead?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying. If this thing goes off the rails here the last 4 weeks, they end up 2-15. They don't win a home game, and they have 9 home games this year. And this is the 100th season of the New York Giants. And they get blown out the last, 4 games. Be careful. I mean, it's just like they got to play hard. Now, they played hard last week, and they got to play hard again this week. Now, they're not going to win, but just stay in the game, keep playing hard, keep the game relatively close. Nobody's expecting you to win. And I don't think anybody really wants you to win except for the players themselves.
Yeah. And a couple of fans that don't like the tanking situation. But yeah, 16.5 point underdog.